Y'all nervous yet? Let me tell y'all something. Your boy right here is not nervous because I'm snorting that culture cocaine, baby. Maybe I shouldn't make that gesture on camera. But still, I got that Heat culture. I got that hashtag guts. You know why? Because we're the Miami Heat. We are the hardest working, best conditioned, most unselfish, toughest, nastiest, meanest, cheapest, whitest team in the league, or whatever the hell the Heat mantra is. Listen, this is me trying to cope as a Miami Heat fan, right? So for anyone, sometimes I still get these Portland fans that comment on my videos saying, oh, things aren't looking so good now, huh? Well, no, they're not really looking good for Miami, but they're also not looking good for Portland. So why are you antagonizing me? Anyways, they become cope harder. Well, today that's kind of what I'm doing, maybe, because things aren't looking good for the Miami Heat right now, right? Look, I'm getting a call from a random spam 305 number. Maybe it's Pat Riley. Should I pick up? Let's see if anyone's there. Hello?
Hello?
Who is this?
Yeah, this is Kevin. I'm calling about the property at 11th Street in Bradenton.
Okay, I have a quick question for you, though.
Yeah, sure.
Can the Miami Heat win a championship under Jimmy Butler?
Mm-hmm.
You heard it here first, guys. I have no idea who the hell that was, but we're going to keep it in the video because I don't really feel like editing. But that guy right there from 305, that could have been Pat Riley himself. When I said, can Jimmy Butler lead the Miami Heat to a championship? He said, and I quote, because this is going to be a sort of a random video. But anyways, I wanted to come here today and talk to y'all because I just got a brand new haircut and I had to show it off. You feel me? Shout out to my boy Frankie over at Cut Session Davey. Had to give my boy a shout out real quick. Listen, if y'all are in the South Florida area, make sure you hit up my boy. I got the links down below. He goes by Cut Sesh, cuts out of the Players Lounge in Davie, but he does travel a little bit as well. Came to Fort Myers today, so I had to shout out my boy Frankie and slide my boy some help on his parlays because the boy has been he don't want to listen to me, so maybe he'll listen to y'all. But shout out my guy if he wants a fresh haircut. My dude is the best barber in the business. Once again, that stuff is linked down below. But anyways, I want to come here today and talk about a very concerning statistic because after the Miami Heat lost to the Denver Nuggets yesterday, they now fell to a very poor record against the top teams in the league. And that's kind of something that I wanted to get into. So I went back the last 4 seasons and I tallied the Miami Heat's record versus the top 7 teams. And the reason I did the top 7 teams is one, so it can kind of include all the teams that have been good for the last few years to kind of keep the data similar, and also just for tiebreaker purposes because there was a lot of tiebreakers in the top 7. So anyways, this season versus the top 7 teams, the Miami Heat are 2-14. And if you look at this little further breakdown here versus the top 5 teams, they're 11. They're 0-11 versus the top 5 teams. That's very concerning. You got the Celtics, Nuggets, Thunder, Wolves, Clippers, and then finally the Heat are 1-1 versus the Cavs and 1-2 versus the Bucks. Now, kind of what I want to ask y'all, because I don't know if I've made my mind up yet, is how concerning a statistic is this? By the way, the Heat still play the Cavaliers twice, so this stat can update a little bit. The reason I want to know if it's concerning is because we know the Heat weren't a great regular season team last year, right? They finished as the 8th seed after losing the first game to play in tournament, but they did make the NBA Finals. So you can look at a stat like this and say, oh, well, the good teams are who you're playing in the playoffs. You want to perform well against them in the regular season, but they really didn't play that well last year, and they still went on a run. And at least that's what I kind of thought. So I went back and looked at the numbers for last year as well. And versus the top 7 teams, which you can see right here, the Heat finished 10-11. So yeah, still under 500, but much, much, much better than the 2-14 we see right now. And of course, that Heat team finished 8th and went to the NBA Finals. And if you go 1 year before that, in 21-22, the Miami Heat finished 8-11 versus the top 7 teams. Again, closer to 500. That team, I believe, finished first in the Eastern Conference, actually. And then they lost to in Game 7 versus the Boston Celtics. And then the year before that, which I initially did not want to include just because that was the year where the 4 best teams had like a 7-week offseason because of COVID, you know, the 4 best teams in the bubble the year before. So that whole season was kind of fluky, but I did think I should include it because that's really the last time in the only time in the Jimmy Butler era where the Miami Heat did not have a sustained playoff run. So in that year, they obviously finished, they finished like 6th or something, got swept by the Bucks in the first round. And in the regular season, they finished 4-13 versus the top 7 teams. So if you count this year and go back the last 4 years, really the only other time they didn't have a 500 to slightly below 500 record versus the top teams was the year they got swept in the playoffs. Now, this isn't enough data to show a trend or anything like that. We're really only looking back at the past 3 years because we don't know how this season would play out. So I wanted to ask y'all how y'all feel about it. How concerning is this? The reason I am slightly concerned is because we know that the Heat typically play down to their competition, right? That's why if y'all been watching the post games on this channel, after the loss to the Mavericks, after the loss to the Thunder, I was very mad because I felt like that was a chance to make a statement game. You could have went out there, beat those good teams on the road, and you let them slide. But then after they followed that up with a loss to the Wizards, I really wasn't all that mad because as a Heat fan, I wasn't surprised. And there's probably a lot of people out there that weren't surprised either. So I wasn't as mad because we know the Heat played down to the competition. You saw the Heat not try in that game until 2 minutes left where they almost came back from down 10 and fell just short. But we know they played down to the competition. So in this case, this season, when I see that the Heat are 2-14 versus top teams, I am concerned. I do believe that the playoffs in the regular season is a completely different game. And I understand there's a lot of variables here too. I didn't look as far as to which star players were hurt in these matchups, which nights were back-to-backs and that sort of thing. So there is some variability there, but I still think it's a little bit concerning because they usually, like I said, play up to the competition. But as I was saying, the postseason, though, it's a different game, right? You can't necessarily compare what you saw in the regular season and what you see in the postseason because oftentimes it doesn't work like that. Now, as I started to do this research, the first year that I kind of thought of is I remember the year where the Brooklyn Nets got KG and Paul Pierce, and I think they swept the Miami Heat in the season series. They lost 0-4 to them in the regular season, and come playoff time, there was people freaking out. There was Heat fans that were very nervous of the Brooklyn Nets because of what they did to Miami in the regular season, and then the Miami Heat bust that Brooklyn Nets ass in 5 games, and it was lights work. But as I started to do some research for that, I said, well, isn't it kind of stupid that I'm pulling statistics from 10 years ago to kind of justify what this Heat team may or may not do? Because it's a completely different team. So that's kind of why I didn't look as much in that direction because I didn't think that it made a lot of sense to go back that far, right? So that being said, I don't really have a ton to say this video. I just kind of wanted to point out some of this data that I looked at because it's bad. I don't have an explanation for it, but it's really, really bad. And on top of that, we did get news that Tyler Hero and Kevin Love are still out tomorrow versus the Detroit Pistons. They actually play the Pistons twice. And the Miami Heat better win those games. Because right now they sit in the 8th spot, and my goal all year has been finish in the top 6 to avoid having to play in that play-in tournament where anything could happen. Last year, I said it 100 times, they almost missed the playoffs completely, if not for a Max Strus explosion. So I think they're playing a little too much with fire right now. They got to start stringing together these wins, and they need to finish top 6. Top 4 would be great. Get home court in the first round. If not, I don't care. We know this Heat team can win road games. But right now, things are looking great because I think it was after the All-Star break, the Heat actually had the literal easiest record, like strength of schedule-wise, going into the second half of the season. But when I was looking at the schedule, it didn't look that easy to me. I saw Dallas. I saw OKC. I saw Denver. And then, of course, you saw Washington and Detroit in between. They already blew the games to Washington. They better not blow the games to Detroit as well. And I don't know if or when Kevin Love and Tyler Hero will come back. I don't know how much it will help. We know they've also lost a lot of games earlier this year when Tyler Hero played. But it looks like they're missing Kevin Love a lot more than we realized because Spoelstra was being forced to play Nikola Jovic, the backup 5. It worked to a degree, but it wasn't necessarily great. And then we saw him having to find some minutes for Thomas Bryant and Orlando Robinson over the last couple weeks. And although Thomas Bryant was very decent in his small stretch versus the Nuggets, we know what Thomas Bryant and Orlando Robinson are. And I don't think they're rotation players at this moment in time. So hopefully those two guys can get healthy. And then this Heat team can kind of start to build up a run because there's 19 games left in this regular season. That's not a lot. I was surprised to see when there was only that many games left. So anyways, that's really all I got to say for this video. I just kind of wanted to come on and talk for a little bit here. I like how Brendan Tobin does that. I'm sure y'all know Tobin. If something happens during the day, he'll just come on the camera and just ramble for a little bit. And I think that's kind of fun to do. I'd like to get a Miami Dolphins video out. They made a ton of moves today. I don't necessarily know the guys that they signed, but they signed some cornerback that people are very happy about. So hopefully he can come in and kind of fill the void that Xavier Howard is leaving. Now, I've been on record though. I was cool with X leaving. Obviously, I love Xavier Howard, but he wasn't too reliable these last couple years from an injury standpoint And when he was playing, you could tell he wasn't that healthy and he just really wasn't that great. So I was cool not having to rely on him. And I just kind of acknowledged that it was time to move on from X. So hopefully this guy that got in his place will be very good. And I know a lot of other Dolphins fans that know a lot more than me are satisfied with the other pickups they made. They got a couple linebackers, the center, I know they're a little iffy on, but they also got Shaq Barrett, they got Jordan Poyer, so they are getting some pieces to kind of fill in the defensive holes that left with Christian Wilkins. Couldn't afford to pay him. You lost Jerome Baker, you lost Van Ginkel, which was stupid. They should have paid him. I thought he was the best defender on the team outside of Jalen Ramsey, but I digress. That's my little bit of Dolphins talk for today. I'm going to just end the video before I keep talking more. Make sure to like, subscribe. I appreciate y'all a lot. Peace out.
Look, pull up in your city, tryna get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.